And the principle of Obaseki was to grow the wealth of the state in such a way that the state has funds not only to run itself, but provide social services and infrastructural development.
So please, I would like for you to elaborate on these points, the concept in it very self, what MOA stands for in the very first place, sir.
As it is conceived, it was conceived as a tourism project and a project that will provide revenue for Edo State. Because sometimes people fail to understand that there is poverty within the land. And the people, even if you want to tax them, never mind that the federal government thinks that because they lent one thing from page 25 or 28 or 100 page or something from the World Bank and or IMF, and they were told that if you do more taxation, tax to GDP ratio, if it is like that, then the economy can grow. Do you tax poor people? You don't. You let them grow well, then you can tax them afterwards. And the principle of Obaseki was to grow the wealth of the state in such a way that the state has funds not only to run itself, but provide social services and infrastructural development. That was his view. And MOA is part of that agenda. But this time it was looked at from the tourism perspective. If you have a museum housing West African arts, it had a component of research, archaeological research. It had a component of a natural forest, which would be like a typical African rainforest. Then it will have a place where archaeologists can stay and work and do a lot of intensive research and collaborate with those anywhere in the world. So it had that dimension. But it was not isolated. It was not in a silo by itself. It was linked with what we call the Benin Cultural District, the area between where MOA was placed, Oba Palace, Exotic Street. If you take, because a lot of people were going to be removed to create a cultural area where it's like another expanded Igun Street, where people can now come and display their artifacts, homemade crafts, and so on. Then it's also linked with Radisson Blue Hotel. See, these are the dimensions that those who don't know the concept keep talking about how they were pouring money, and there was something that is. So, when the foreigners will come, they'll have a 5-star hotel to stay. Either you are staying in Protea, which is already there, then you also have Radisson Blue. So, Radisson Blue, people can stay from there. Then you have a cultural district, then you have MOA, and people were going to come. And it was not about, because this is where the problem was, that people had this conception that it was going to house the artifacts, the Benin artifacts that were returned either from Germany, Smithsonian Museum, British Museum, German Museum, Switzerland, that when they come, they will put them inside MOA. No way, that wasn't the plan. Because you see, very early when this problem was already screwing up, remember it was called EMOA, Edo Museum of West African Arts. But when this crisis was brewing, the trustees decided to remove the E and it became MOA, so that it was Museum of West African Arts. So you could, for example, go in there, see arts of Benin, arts of Ile-Ife, arts from El Kanemi Empire, Borno Empire, arts from Burkina Faso, art from Côte d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, from Benin Republic, from Dakar. Can you imagine what that is? That is, you can arrive. When you arrive, all this will be available for you to see. Do you know what that means?
So, in light of what you are saying, the idea was to make Edo a cultural melting pot.
Absolutely, okay. A cultural hub.
Yes, a cultural hub for the global audience.
Yes.
So, does it negate the fact that because it's not entirely to serve the Edo local market or the global market, does it negate or does it contradict the fact that it's not an Edo initiative or it doesn't belong to the people of Edo or Edo State? Say, giving an example. with the British Museum in UK, it's the British Museum, but yet it houses the whole of the world's cultural, heritage.
That's it.
So
That's it. That's it.
okay.
Because you see, who should be running the museum? And this was a question nobody, people should be asking. Is it the government? Is it the job of government to be running museums? Is that the structure and pattern globally? No. Like I'm sure you given the example. Like we talk about the Smithsonian Museum in New York, the British Museum, different kinds of museums that you find in Europe and so on. They are run by trusts. And so Obaseki decided that this also should be run by trust. And he got Ihanacho, the man, I think his first name is Philip Ihanacho, to be in charge of the trust. So that all he does is give the enabling environment. And he himself has provided answer on this after this blowout of absolute diplomatic embarrassment. He has made a statement because it will be not right if he doesn't speak at all and we leave it at the level of just government talking, the Oba talking, and the ordinary people talking. Because it's this misunderstanding he has tried to provide a background to. That what he did as government was provide enabling environment. And the thing is this, more if the government, Edo State government, has provided an enabling environment, and government is in continuity, it didn't stop because Obaseki is no longer there. And Obaseki wasn't going to be there forever. And he wasn't going to be there longer than the day he left. So it meant that the person who takes over office has a duty to know what had happened, who is doing what, and where did government interface with this project, and see whether it can be brought up. But rather you have this complete garbage, misunderstanding of intentions and good intentions. Because what even made the thing come to the point of utter confusion was when the German ambassador says they donated this money or whatever money they donated to MOA as a trust. We're in a modern situation, and therefore you must look at things in. And now you see when you think now the storm arose, what happened? The ambassadors are angry. How do you get them hunted out of a place by thugs? And that wasn't a beautiful spectacle. And not only that, they've already even begun to react
because of this
incident. So the effect has already begun to be seen.
Yeah.
And this is sad because the loss is colossal. If they have spent about $60 million to get MOA to where it was, and you stop it, now, like I asked in one of my platforms, who in Benin is going to bring $60 million to do anything in Benin? Who? Is it Edo State government? Because like Obaseki said, that the Edo State government doesn't have that money, and therefore it couldn't have been the state government money to be poured into that place. The money was sourced by donors. And he had was going all over the whole place. Cambridge University, British Museum, everybody, Germany, everybody was chipping in. That's how the money came. They haven't gotten that investment and trust. And they wanted to look forward to how this thing can grow and it becomes part and parcel of a global museum community. Such that when you leave New York, you can hear, oh, I'm going to Benin. And because people have heard so much about Benin, and now it is bad story. It's a bad narrative you have set down. That if you came to Benin and you're a foreigner, you could be attacked. And that your presence is not wanted. So it is a sorry situation. So investments have already begun to be shunted. And that is why the presidency moved in. They have set up a committee. And you can see what I call a real confusion and mess.
At last, somebody now understand the kind of administration that Obaseki ran in Edo State, building wealth. He said the principles of Obaseki was to build the wealth of the state. And that is what we saw. I do not want to dabble into the MOA or the Benin Royal Museum of any sort. I just want to, this man was able to capture all that I have been trying to talk about. He said there is so much poverty in the land. And Obaseki's principle was to build the wealth of the state. And he said, who tax poor people? Who tax poor people? It is only the rich that pay tax. Who tax poor people? You must build I said it in one of my videos. I said it is when you invest in human capital development and you bring the people out of poverty, that it is the people you bring out of poverty that now make better the society. That is what I said. I said it as the principles of Obaseki was to build the wealth. That is why he brought 2 refineries. That is why he brought 2 ethanol plants. That is why he brought also the ShopRite, the Radisson Blau, even the MOA. Those were his intention, building the wealth, investing in human capital development that will eventually raise the wealth of the state. Obaseki is one governor that was not waiting for federal allocation before things must be done. He created enabling environment for investors to come. He creates the enabling environment for business to strive. He took off agberos out of the street. He tried his best in the area of Obaseki was always saying that without security of a state cannot grow. Investors cannot come. That was why he did all he could. That was why technology was inserted into our security system. That was why vigilantes were trained so that it can make the state calm and enabling for investors to come and strive. No investors will come into a state that is not calm. No investors will come into a state where there is insecurity. That was why he did all he could. Even if he had to take him to build a command and control center, set cameras around the state. Because his intention is to build capacity. His intention is to build the wealth of Edo. That was why even when this administration came, they saw money. Or do you think Obebolo enter into office and start buying buses with his own money? 100 buses with his own money? How? It was because money was there in the coffers of government. Because a man was focusing on building the wealth. He wanted to make Edo State. You can see a hub of everything. Hub. Educational hub. Health hub. Cultural hub. Everything was hub. Entertainment hub. Everything. All the intention was to build the wealth. I said it, there is too much poverty in Edo State. And now what we have now is not only poverty, financial poverty. We have as in mental poverty right now. In this mental poverty, many people are poor mentally. Mentally, many are poor. That is our biggest challenge right now. So Obaseki's motto was to pull people out of poverty, to pull the state out of poverty, generate wealth. And the way you can generate wealth is when you make it enabling for people to come, investors to come. That is how you generate wealth. That is how you pull people. A man during his time when he was still aspiring to becoming the governor of the state, promised that he's going to create 200,000 jobs. Do you think it's a joke to make that kind of promise, campaign promise? It is when you raise the people. When you raise people who have wealth. Do you know people that are in diaspora that want to invest into Edo State, but they need that enabling environment? That was why Kora City was also intended to be built, but by now we don't know what is happening to Kora City. We don't know. Our brothers from overseas were all buying lands. They want to invest, they want to develop. People were coming, foreigners were coming, and those days were booming. Flight was coming. Alago Down Summit, you see white and black people on the same room, listening to lectures. All these were plans to build the wealth of Edo State. But all of a sudden, all of these things crash. Crash. Edo State, if you want to remember Edo State, you remember Edo State in the site of culture. In the site of culture. And Mowa Museum is supposed to be that signature of culture for Edo State. But all of a sudden, I say I don't want to talk about Mowa, but all of a sudden we are seeing the signature somehow now. That was his intention, building wealth, building capacity, building people. Human capital development. Taking people out of poverty. It is when you build the people, when you raise people out of poverty, that the people will be able to feed for themselves and even think of paying tax that will help the economy. It's not the kind of government that we run now that we want to even plan to be running in this Tinubu administration by next year, that even if you are working, you are not working, you pay tax. People who you don't know how they are feeding, how they are faring, you want to tax them. People you have not given job opportunity, you want to tax them. Obaseki, God bless you. God bless you. And this man, God bless you as well, because if it's just one person that understands what I'm talking about, I've always been talking about human capital development. Investing in human beings. I say invest. Pull people out of poverty. There is too much poverty in Edo State. And now they have had meta poverty in it, that people no longer think straight. When you talk, they come. Yeah? Thank you, sir. God bless.